That's a good question.
I can rattle off. Walker, you go first.
I think that one of them that we hear sometimes is they a lot of people don't know all of the different directions that they can go career wise. If they're especially if they've never had someone in the construction industry like a family member and
Mm,
they
right.
they like it, they think construction's cool, but they're just kind of like what I was when I came into it. Like I knew that there was a GC. I've heard of a superintendent. Didn't really know what a project manager did. And I didn't know there was safety. I didn't know there was pre-con. I didn't know there was C. I didn't know there was lead. I didn't know
Field
in the and
engineer.
that's just in the GC route. And we're not even touching it, right? You have accountants, you have lawyers, you name it. And
Yep.
then you have the subcontractor route and I don't even know all the roles within that. And I'm in construction, right? And I think that if companies did
And
a better
suppliers.
job of putting out information and just something like, hey, you want to learn about the world of plumbing? Here's like five different positions, and we're
Mm,
just going to break them down one by one. This is what they do, right? And then you could go in like when you start, typically you start here. This is usually your job role. And just something to give people who are curious about the specific area within construction a little bit more information about the different roles associated with it. That's one piece that we hear from us. Davis has got another one.
yeah, I mean, I think that was great, Walker. I mean, I go back to Auburn University and thinking, when I graduate, I just know everything about construction, right? You just get humbled. You're like, this industry is humongous, and there's never any way in the world I'm going to understand all of it. But it's the challenge. It's fun. That's what makes
Mm-hmm.
construction so awesome is that every single day there's a new challenge. But one of the things I will say that I've heard and also I've struggled with is just people just want to matter. Like as a younger generation, I can't tell you how frustrating it is again going back to that first job site where these old superintendents said anything that I said was dumb, it was stupid, it wasn't thoughtful, like and so just allowing them to have an opinion, whether you take it or not, like letting me, man, okay, well you talked about this, what if we do it this way? Man, that's stupid. No, like, don't say that, man, that's stupid, but go talk to me about like, well, I don't understand that. It may not be the best way, but let me show you, this is how I think we should do it. And let's kind of marry that together because so many young people get, which is part of our generation, they're just soft and get, you know, discouraged so easily. And I'm part of it, but I have a little bit of grit in me from playing sports and just going through tough environment growing up. But so many people get discouraged so easily and just quit and never come back to your industry. And again, talked on earlier, Jordan, we gotta train people. We gotta invest in this generation because again, once they know that there's a purpose, once they know that they matter, once they know they're going to be invested in, they will run through a brick wall for you. They will do anything. They'll work as much as you want them to. Like just let them know that they care, that they have worth, and that hey, I see a future for you in my company and let me show it to you. This is the plan I have for you in our career. Man, if you did that for a younger person just getting started and just showing that you're going to invest in them, they're going to do anything for you. I mean, I can just think
Yeah.
about again my superintendent now. Like he talks about some of the things that this is what you started, this is where you're at. I'm proud of you for what you've done. Like just simple things that I don't know. It just for a lot of us, it's hard to think about, but it's not mind blowing stuff. It's really not.
And I wanted to add on that too. I think that this, especially our generation and younger, right? The what they're motivated by has also changed a little bit in terms of how they're motivated daily. Yeah, everyone wants to make a big paycheck. Yes, that is a motivation. But I think in terms of like day to day, if you just go and tell someone, hey, you're doing a great job. Like I see, like Davis is saying, I see you doing this. I think in this area, you can improve by doing XYZ. Just like corrective feedback that's not like, hey, you suck, right? You're doing a horrible job. It's, hey, you're doing a great
Yeah.
job. All
Yeah.
these, like these three areas, you're crushing it. I think this area is the next area you should choose to work on. That's like I think that's all a lot of the people are asking, right? But the older generation, again, not a
They don't
bad
want
thing,
feedback. Yeah.
but that's not what they wanted. They didn't want feedback. They wanted to show up to work, they wanted to do their job, and they wanted to go home.
Yep.
and that was it. They didn't want you to talk to them. They didn't want you to tell them, "Hey, great job. Hey, you're not doing great here. Do better." They want to do their job and leave. But that's kind of changed a little bit as the years have gone by.
What have you seen, Jordan, as being a business owner and hiring younger people?
No, I think you guys crushed that answer, and I appreciate that feedback. But and I think it goes back to one thing that you mentioned earlier too, and it's sad that we see these blue collar jobs as like a fallback option,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it kind of transcends just our industry as a whole. But everybody wants to feel empowered. Everybody wants to feel that they matter, where they spend so much of their time, right? Like we
Yeah.
spend so much of
Yep.
our time at work that it's important that we feel like the people that are there have a vested interest in us. And that doesn't matter what industry, and everybody wants to feel
Yep.
like that. And I think until we start to, I mean, we can talk about it all the time, but unless we are truly showing it in the day to day, and I think that's what's difficult. It's easy to get on a podcast and say that I want to do that, or say that I do that as a business owner, but until we do it day to day and it's across the board, it's going to be difficult. But I think once these businesses see that the bottom line changes because of it, that will be the powerful kind of transition point. Like you talked about earlier, Walker, you said some of the bigger companies do these things, and they're big because they do it. And I think that's what's difficult is whenever you know, and I get it as a small entrepreneur that you're in the grind of it all. So focusing on solving this problem or putting out this fire, then you add on that I'm supposed to make this person feel, empowered and involved in what we're doing. It can be a lot to ask, but
Yeah.
it's so much important if what matters to you is the legacy of that business and the legacy of what you're setting
Mm-hmm.
up, more so than just the paycheck. Because I think
Right.
that, there's studies about it, and I talked to a behavioral psychologist in one of my episodes that talked about specifically about motivation, right? And there's always extrinsic motivators like money, like the rewards, like someone telling us we're doing a good job. But those intrinsic ones, after our basic needs are met, are really what's most important. The intrinsic motivators, the things that you would spend time doing regardless of pay, regardless of what's going on. And one of those things that I think a lot of people just haven't realized yet is doing something with your hands, something that creates something. I don't know, when you take a building and do a remodel, or you just fix a leaky faucet, there's something powerful about knowing that you can look at something and say, I did that. I accomplished it.
It's so gratifying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back, last week, I was frustrated with a drywall contractor, asked them to install these access panels for I don't know how long. And so I just went and did it myself. And that was the most stress-free day that I've had ever. I had to cut out 3 holes, had to reframe it because they weren't there. And then I installed them. And I was just like, man, it's a good 10 hours right here. I did three, and it probably would have taken them, 5 minutes to do one of them.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed struggling and having a hard time doing it. But it also, I think it's important the younger generation to go do some of that stuff and have the freedom to do it, because then you realize, man, this guy that throws these up in 5 minutes, there's a reason why he's doing it, because he can
Mm-hmm.
fling it out. But anyway, getting back into the podcast, man, I love what you were talking about. I think for a lot of people, again, it's hard to think of it holistically. I'm known for that. Walker knows that everything's interconnected to me. And so whenever I see, you know, a company say that we're investing, and then you go and see what they're actually doing on the job site, you're like, well, are you really? Like, are you
Yeah.
really doing that? And so you're right. I think until the company see that it affects their bottom line, ultimately there won't be a change. And I don't know. I'm always a proactive person. I don't like to be reactive, right? And there's all the statistics about, how many people are leaving and how many amount of years. Eventually it's going to be like, okay, this is the year, right? And so why don't we try to start encouraging and training people now? That's my opinion.
Well, and you guys talked about it too. Like it's, kind of letting people know that there are so many options. And one thing that, we talk about is that it's AI proof, it's recession proof. And we don't want to wait till we get to that point of no return that everybody starts to transition to the trades.
Right.
Like
Right.
do it now. But I think, the first podcast that I actually wanted to do was more related to what we're talking about. And it was just the idea of highlighting people that work in blue collar jobs and show people that there's examples of every different example of, from a entry level, helper to the marketing people, the accounting staff, the HR, like there's, like you guys said, there's so many roles and so many things that somebody can do, and you can start at the bottom and work all the way. And if entrepreneurship is something that interests you, like you can own your own business. Like there's
Right.
no limit to what you can do. And I think that I think I'll revisit that because that's what I need one more thing to do is, but I think it's an important thing to highlight. And, I also this year started working with Crew. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but
Crew
I thought
collab.
that was just such a cool message about, like, let's really just start like rebranding what it means to work in blue collar jobs. And I think that's the thing is we have to, I had a conversation with Hayden. Obviously you guys are familiar. And he talked about meeting people where they were, especially young people, meet them where they are. So they spend the most amount of their time. And right now it's talk. And if that's the case, you can be
Go
a
there.
plumbing influencer. You can be
Yeah.
a construction site influencer and start to show these kids and even adults are using those apps. So show
Right.
everybody that there is joy and there is, fulfillment in this type of work.
Yeah. To hit on one of your points earlier, I think there's three things right now when you said that you can't AI it, right? So there's robots in construction, and so people start to freak out all of a sudden, like, man, they're gonna take away like all the jobs, and like, no, those robots are things that are
Make
actually
your job
installing stuff.
easier.
It's got to have like perfect conditions, A, for it to work, and then B, yes, it does make stuff easier, but you have to think about how a job's built. Like, you know, you take a schedule on the first job you're on and you look at it and you're like, okay, this is how the job's built, right? This is how it works. It doesn't work that way. You can have everything scheduled out perfectly. You're going to hit a delay with material. Okay, now we got a wood frame or shaft, and now we have to infill it and start after the robot's not fitting there. Like you're going to have a piece of machinery that has a completely flat concrete slab, and then that robot, where there's no obstructions at all, can lay CMU block. But if there doesn't meet that criteria, then again, you're going to have people that are skilled. And I don't know if you've ever seen a block mason. They are highly skilled. I could not do a lick of what they do. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
hard work. And I love watching them. So like, I'm
Mhm.
not trying to go off on a tangent here, but this industry, I just don't see how you replace it. How can you replace someone being able to provide you clean water, someone that provides you electricity, air conditioned heat? Like you can't just, even if we prefab things, there's still got to be people to install it, right? And so
Yep.
you can't get out of it. And so again, to the younger generation, man, if you have an aptitude mechanically, right, and you think it's fun to work with your hands, I encourage you, obviously, come into our industry. We need you.
Well, and reach out to the people like you guys that have
Yeah.
answers about what that looks like. I think that's important. You guys have laid out pretty good roadmaps for people and have resources for people available. I mean, it's okay to reach out. And if you have questions, hey, reach out to me. There's people out there to help and that would show you what it is. And I want to, without taking over your show, I wanted to ask another question because you
Go
guys
for it.
do highlight the mental health aspect of it a lot. And what prompted that? Is it just feedback from people in the industry? Is it stuff that you guys go through? Like, why do you think it's so important that we talk about that, especially in the blue collar world? Because I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm curious of what what you guys think.
Davis, want to take this one first?
Yeah, I think that I used to treat people like a butthole, and I realized just how much anxiety I had in my life, and my aunt helped me out a lot. I stressed about her probably every podcast, and people roll their eyes at me. But at that point in time, I would say that I was a Christian and that I followed Jesus, but I really wasn't. If you looked at what I was doing and my fruit in my life, it was just very evident that Davis Hambrick was not a follower. And I grew up that way, but going off into college, I just kind of took the wrong turn. And my aunt was a counselor, and so I didn't know it at the time, but she worked on me slowly. And I just thought she was a loving aunt that just cared for me, that wanted to listen to me. But I had no clue the skills she was teaching me was all about relationships, was all about leadership, was all about how do you, if there is an anxious thing going on, it's okay, but this is how you recover from it. This is how you attack it, right? Like people think that anxiety is this thing that just isn't supposed to be had. No, anxiety is an alarm that tells you something's not going right. And you can take medicine to help deaden it, but like again, it's not going to go away. You're going to have to learn skills to understand how do I combat this when this happens. And to me, again, It's going to the Lord first. It's spending time in my quiet time. It's like I was told my wife today, like today was the first day in a literally long time that I did those three things. And guess what? My day started out so much better because I was willing to do those steps. And for me, I'm a believer, so it's easy. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
But to answer your question, the mental health side, I used to just be lost, and I didn't treat Jordan Simon like Jordan Simon. I would just, again, we just put out a mental health podcast today, Jordan, and Jesse Hernandez talked about. I used to view people as a disposable mindset, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't know Jordan, and I'm not going to get to know him. And in 3 months, it's not going to really matter because he's not going to be on my job. But when I started to look at Jordan as a person that has value, that actually matters, that yes, he may not be able to answer all my questions, but hey, I bet he's good at something. Let's go figure it out and try to use that and understand that we can do this together. It's not about Davis Hambrick anymore. It's about other people. And so mental health to me, again, it's a long answer. I can go on and on about it. I want to be a counselor. I want to help tradesmen. I want to be able to be the person that's on a job site that if someone needs to talk to, they can come talk to me. Like I can rattle everything off in the book, but it just means so much to me because there's such a stigma to it. Because this will be my last thing I say. If you have a broken shoulder, right, we go see a doctor. If we break our feet, if we broke a foot, if we have a heart attack, we're gonna go see a doctor. But for whatever reason, if there's something going on mentally, then one of the most powerful things in our body, we just don't want to go talk to somebody. It's not important, right? And that makes zero sense to me. And I want to tell people that it's okay if there's something you're going through mentally, if you feel like you have anxiety, there's hard things in your life. It's okay. Now let's go find the resources and help you understand that I need to go take the first step. That's just going and saying I have issues and I need help.
Because I think, and maybe you don't, I mean, maybe you do know this, but the most helpful thing that you could possibly do is what you just did, and be vulnerable and talk about it and let people know that it's okay to not be okay. So
Right.
just so you know, you already are helping people. And I think it's the most profound way you can do it.
I appreciate that because there's a lot of people on the job site today. If I did that, I mean, and I do, and I still do, they look at me the wrong way. But I know, again, it's really easy for me to get upset in that moment. But I think back again to how I used to live, and I go, you know what? I used to be a lot like that guy. I need to give him some grace and just turn the other cheek and continue to show up. Walker, what were you thinking?
I mean, you hit all the points, and I agree with all that. I think in addition to, I've been on job sites and I've sat next to people who have committed suicide, before. I know other people in my life who've done the same thing, and people very close to me. And you see it change them, and you see them kind of become a shell of who they are. So in that aspect, I think that people need a lot of help because, like Dave said, a lot of people. And again, I know people in my life now who just, whether something happened when they were little or it's just how they grew up, they don't want to talk. They don't want to be vulnerable. They think that being vulnerable is a weakness.
Right.
And if you are vulnerable, people are not going to want to talk to you. They're going to think of you differently. And I used to have that mindset. And, it's something that you have to work your way out of, because the moment that you just do what Davis did, people are willing, like, oh, well, I had the same difficulties that you struggled with. Like, let me share a little bit about my story, right? And it opens it up to a lot deeper conversation, because most of the time, and I think all y'all can agree that most of the time when you go to work, people and you know them on the very, very, very surface level. You don't really know anything more about them. You might know some of their kids' names and their wife's name, but that's about it, right? You don't really have those conversations because it's big, strong, tough, macho construction. No one wants to talk about it. But I think that's one reason. It's just, hey, look, you got a place to talk to someone. Everyone goes through things. No matter who you are, no matter how tough you are, you got something going on in your mind. If you need someone to talk about it, we can talk about it. I think that construction is very, very hard on people. And, something that we've talked about with Jesse, we talked about with Sebastian and a few other people who we partnered with, just to have these conversations of, there's a lot of stuff there is a lot of physical related to mental health as well, right? So how can we also help the physical on a job site? And one way that they're doing it is like you're hiring haircut people to come and give a haircut to all the guys on site.
That's
So that
cool.
instead of on Saturday, instead of not being able to spend time with their family, you know, they have to go get a haircut, they have to go do chores, they have to do all kinds of things, maybe even go to the doctor, right? Can you bring in a physician to the job site and give people physicals? Can you bring in someone to give them a haircut? Can you bring in some tents that they can sit underneath the heat? How can you eliminate certain things in their life to where when they go home, they can be home? They can enjoy their family. They can go, they don't have to think about anything else, right? And I think that's needs to be the responsibility of employers. A lot of them is to what more can I help my employee? How can I help them be better? And what can I bring to the job site to do so? You know, and so that's just what we're hoping to do, is to spread that awareness, to have these conversations, because a lot of people don't want to have it, or they do want to have it, they just don't know how to.
Well, yeah, I think that's it right there. It's like in a world where talking about mental health is so taboo, like blue collar, our world is the epitome of that. And like you said, it's the rough, tough. And it's like, but if you're spending 8, 10 hours a day with people literally in the trenches, and you have crappy days, you know, in our world, in the plumbing, you have some crappy days, literally and figuratively. So it's like, if you feel like you can't talk about that stuff, then it just weighs on you. So I think, I mean, I agree. It was just that, in my perspective, it's that taboo mentality, and we just are at the tip top of that, where you're not supposed to show vulnerability, and it's sad, and it's like you said, we all have those issues, and we all have problems that we all face, and it's like, it should be the place where we feel the most comfortable to talk about it, because everyone's going through it. But yeah, I think sharing those stories is the key.
Yeah. And one more thing before I know we got to start winding down. I think about just, man, if I'm being honest, my time in construction. I cannot tell you that every single day that I've been in construction that I am fired up about it, right? It's cyclical. It just keeps happening. And so to me, I've learned what my stressors are. I've learned what I can turn to on the bad days. Like Jesse Hernandez talked to us again, you know, he talked about how he was an alcoholic. He's open about it. He's willing to have that vulnerability. And so he's like, on days that I'm out traveling and I'm having a great time and I'm speaking, I'm putting on an event, when I get back at home, I have boundaries in my life. That way, I don't turn back to alcohol. And guess what? It took him a long time to get there, but he has those systems. How can we help someone in the mental health capacity be willing to understand what that is for you? Because a lot of people over medicate, right? It's, you know, they're taking ibuprofen every single day. They're drinking alcohol. Maybe it's even, you know, the taboo of, I don't want to go see a doctor, even like just a normal doctor if I'm hurting. And so it's all these things. And man, Jordan, maybe we should have you on the next mental health podcast, because I'm fired up and I got a lot of ideas now, but I'm going to be quiet after this. But just if we think about all those things and just try to holistically look at it, there's a lot of suckiness that's in our industry. And like going back to Walker and Jordan, how can we help take away some of that suck to, again, encourage the younger generation and get them involved in our industry? And so I'm gonna pause here and then I'm gonna ask my last question. Any thoughts?
No, I won't. I'm happy to come back anytime. But yeah, I think, and I've ran through the same thing, where it's like, I had like 5 episodes in a row that I talked to a mental health professional. So I was like, maybe I'm going through something. But I think it's definitely a topic worth, talking about.
Right. That's good. And so, Jordan, as we wind down, we always ask these two questions. If you were going to encourage someone to come into our industry, I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what are some qualities you think they should have?
For me, it's just the initiative would be one, and that a willingness to make mistakes. I think that can be true for any job, but like we
Right.
talked about, especially with ours, but find that fit that allows you to do those two things. That if
Yeah.
you want to explore, you want to learn, but you're willing to make mistakes, then I think this is just a great place for you. Because, and if you get in the right company, like even within ours, like mine, it's relatively small, but it's like, hey, you try something and you realize it doesn't work. There's other trades, there's other
That's right.
roles that we have available. Like,
That's right.
I'm not going to give up on you the first time. Like, maybe it turns out it's not for you, but find a place that's willing to invest in you and give you that chance. But yeah, if you have those two things, I think that you'd be set up well.
Jordan, if you could go back to when you first started this journey, even when you were working with your dad's company, fast forward to your 20-year-old self, what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I wish I'd have known that it's okay to follow your own passion, that it's okay to do something that makes you happy, even if it's not the most, prestigious thing in the world. That's that's powerful in and of itself.
Mhm.
That, you know, we only get one shot at this life. So to spend it doing something for somebody else, I don't know. I spent so many years doing that, and it's like, I wish I'd have known that. I wish I'm sure somebody did tell me, and you just don't listen to it when you're 19 and 20. But yeah, I wish I would have really just, you know, focused on what it was that made me happy, because there's nothing better than, I don't know, like after sitting in a cubicle for 6 years, like I was jealous of the guys cutting the grass like 20 floors below me. It's like getting out on a job site, or even dealing with, you know, customers, just being that personal space with someone, and that vulnerability of like, hey, let's fix this problem. I'm here to help you out. I know that it wasn't perfect, but, you know, and then all that, like all of it together is just this beautiful conglomeration of like what it is to be in blue collar jobs. And, you know, there's just nothing like it. And it's sad that it gets that kind of negative connotation with it, that it's just a fallback, or that, you know, it's just for the stupid people, because some of the smartest people I know work in this industry. They may not be able to articulate it perfectly, but they can put things together like, you know, I don't know. You see it, and I guess because I've seen it from both worlds, like that just because someone's working on the 22nd floor of an office building doesn't mean that they're smarter than you. Like there are smart people there too, but it's like just doing something because that's what looks glamorous, or what you feel like you should do, is just not the right reason to do something.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really good. And you know, you closing out, you bring a great point. Both of our wives are in the medical field, and suffice to say, probably a lot smarter than both of us. I know mine is. And she'll come up to me and be like, I don't know what you do. And frankly, like, you throw out all these words, I have zero clue. I could not do what you do, right? In the same way for me, I couldn't do what she does. I don't think Davis could do what Grace does, right? And
no way.
And everyone has their own abilities, and you can't have a doctor or a lawyer without a builder, because they had to build the building that put them there, right? And so everyone works together. You got to have people in every single role to make the society run like it does. And so for those interested in construction, come on in, because there's plenty of room for you, and there's a lot of
fine.
The water's fine. There's a lot of places
the same thing.
a lot of places to succeed in it.
That's right.
But man, Jordan, this was awesome, dude. Seriously, we want to get you back on for a mental health podcast. We do one once a month, so let us know your schedule. But thank you so much again for jumping on and letting us learn a little bit more about you.
No, thank you guys for everything you do. And, you know, if people have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk through anything. So thank you guys for having me on, but then also just the mission that you're on is really cool. So
thank you.
Real quick, what's the name of your podcast?
In Pursuit of Better.